So Montech is kicking off the new year with a new case launch. It's called the Heritage or Heritage Pro, depending on which SKU you choose. It supports micro ATX motherboards including back connect, big graphics cards, 360mm radiators, 920mm fans and ATX power supplies, all packed into a small form factor. So today we're taking a closer look at the Heritage Pro, going over it with a fine-tooth comb and seeing if it lives up to Montech's recent high standards. So this is the Montech Heritage Pro. It actually comes in a couple of different versions. There's the Heritage version, which looks virtually identical to this, and the Heritage Pro. The only real difference between them is the Heritage Pro comes with some fans included, and it comes with an accessory that attaches here, and you can hang headphones or other things off it. It's available in black or white colour schemes. Both come with the tan leather accents. The MSRP price for the standard Heritage is $90, and the Heritage Pro is a little more expensive at $110. In the UK you can pick it up from Scan, priced at just under £60 for the standard version and around £75 for the Pro. According to Montech, the Heritage Pro offers a unique blend of luxury material and high performance engineering with a fusion of leather and metal, as well as signature elements like the suitcase style leather carrying handle, making it perfect for gaming setups and professional environments. It features compact dimensions with support for micro ATX motherboards, long graphics cards, 360mm AIO radiator installation, up to 920mm fans and ATX power supplies. The Heritage Pro also includes a versatile accessory bracket that can be attached to the handle connection, perfect for hanging headphones or other items. It also includes 420mm Montech GF fans pre-installed. Similar style form factor, something like the Lian Li Dancase's A3 M-ATX. This is a little larger than that though, with dimensions of 480 by 235 by 368mm. It's obviously got quite a unique appearance with the combination of steel, leather and tempered glass. I'm not sure myself on this at the moment. It looks a bit like a handbag, I guess. I do prefer the black version in terms of look compared to the white, but I'm using the white one for video because it's easier to pick things out on camera with white. Removing panels is pretty easy though. So on the left hand side there's a couple of thumb screws at the back, and then you just pull it backwards and slide it out. You can see it slides out very easily, and there you can see the tan leather and tempered glass. That tempered glass is quite thick. It's probably 4 or 5mm thick. And then down at the bottom of the leather here, it's got a Montech logo embossed into it. On the other side you can see there's just a steel and plastic frame, and the glass, it actually covers most of the side panel of the glass, but it is on the outside covered up by the leather. The top panel's really easy to remove too. There's just a single thumb screw at the back, and then you can just slide it backwards and that lifts out. There is an ultra fine mesh steel, perforated steel dust filter on this top panel, so potentially you could use the top as intake and not worry too much about dust. You can see it is quite a large open vented top panel. Right hand side panel removes in the same way as the glass side. So a couple of thumb screws to loosen off. It just slides backwards and releases. Again, you can see the tan leather. This is the connection for the handle here. You just have to unscrew the little knob on the side, and then the handle fits on there. Then you just screw that back on to hold the handle in place. This is a combination of leather and a vented steel panel. No dust filter on this side. So if you do use this as an intake, which you can because there's some side fan mounts, you don't really have anything there to filter dust. The front mesh panel can also be removed. It's easier to push that out from the inside. It's quite difficult to get your fingers in there to pop it off the quick release fitting, so you just push it out and then it lifts out. Again, this has got the same vented pattern design as the top and side panels. It's a very open and very well ventilated front panel. The reason it is ventilated because the power supply is mounted just behind that front panel. So the power supply will be pulling air in from the front and exhausting it out of the top. Front I/O connectivity includes 2 USB 3 Type A ports, a single USB 3.2 Gen 2 by 2 Type C port, a combined 3.5mm audio jack for headphones and microphone, and power and reset buttons.
If you're looking for a new chair, then definitely go and check out boolies.co.uk. They offer a whole host of gaming and office chairs that come in a variety of different finishes and different colours.
So as I say, this is the Pro version of the case. It comes with some fans pre-installed In fact, they're not all pre-installed. Some come in the accessories box. It has a 120mm Montech GF PWM fan at the rear, so that's set up as an exhaust. And there's also three 120mm GF reverse blade PWM fans. They can be mounted probably in the floor as an intake, or maybe mount a couple on that side mount as an intake too. Potentially you could mount them on the top of the case as intakes, but if you're running an AIO, the only place you can install the radiator will be up at the top. So in terms of the cooling, you can install up to 920mm fans in the case, 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom, 2 down this side mount, and then 1 at the rear. Alternatively, if you want to use an AIO and radiator setup, on the top mount you can install up to a 360mm radiator. You can also install a 120, a 140, a 240, a 280 up there. At this side mount here, it is just 220mm fans that can be installed there. And on the floor, that supports up to 320mm fans. There's no 140 fan mounts on the floor or on the side or on the rear. But at the top, you can either install 3 120s or 2 140mm fans. In terms of motherboard support, the case really is designed for micro ATX motherboards. It also supports back connect micro ATX motherboards. You could install an ITX board in there too. There are the standoffs for ITX boards. Maximum graphics card length is up to 400mm long, but that does depend on where you have the power supply mounted, because this bracket for ATX power supplies, it can be put in 3 different locations on the front panel. So you can have it right at the top here, or you can lower it down. If you do lower it down, it then reduces the maximum graphics card length to 360mm. Maximum CPU cooler height is 170mm tall, so you can fit a pretty big beefy CPU air cooler in here. So if you look in this section, you can see there's plenty of cutouts around the motherboard. So there's a couple up at the top here for regular micro ATX boards. Down the side and along the bottom of the motherboard tray, those double up as cutouts for either micro ATX regular boards or micro ATX back connect boards. So it supports boards like MSI Project Zero and Asus BTF. There are 5 PCIe slot cutouts at the back of the case, so you should be able to fit thick graphics cards in there. 3 or 4 slot graphics cards even should fit in there, possibly with fans on the floor too. Quick look at the rear of the case. At the top corner here is the mains power connection, so that goes to an extension that connects to the power supply directly. 120mm fan mount, rear I/O cutout for the motherboard, and then 5 PCIe slot cutouts. Around this right hand side, you've got about 30mm of clearance between the motherboard tray and the side panel, so that should be plenty of space for routing cables and managing cables. One thing I don't like about this case already is this black extension lead. You can see all the other front panel connections, they're all using white cables and white actual connector housings, but then you've got this black mains power cable extension. Montech could have done that better, they could have put that in white. You can also see all the cutouts again for the motherboard and passing cables through. There's also plenty of eyelets scattered around for zip ties or Velcro tying cables down to. There's also a bracket here for storage. This thumb screw holds it in place. It's quite tight actually, that thumb screw from the factory. You do need to release it to begin with by using a screwdriver. On here you can install storage drives, so you can install either 2 2.5 inch drives or a 3.5 inch and 2.5 inch drive on there. At the front of the case with the front grill off, you can see here are the 2 screws that hold the power supply mount in position. So if you remove these 2 screws, you can slide that out. That's the power supply mount for ATX power supplies. You can potentially move it down to the middle position there, makes more room at the top for fans and radiators, or if you need to move it even further, it goes down to the lowest position there, and if you've got it in that lowest position, it will restrict the graphics card length. The floor of the case has a big dust filter on it. It is removable, it just clips out. It's actually held on some magnets there. It's a plastic frame with a nylon dust filter, one of the better types and the more high flow type dust filters. You can see with that dust filter removed, the bottom or the floor of the case is extremely open, so it should be good for airflow in through the bottom there. It's got some feet that stretch the full length from the front to the back. You'll find 2 anti-vibration rubbers at the rear and 2 at the front. I'd say these are about 20 to 25mm tall, these feet, so it should give some good ground clearance to allow airflow in through the bottom of the case. The case also comes with a user manual, and there's some details on the features and specs, and it shows you where radiators and fans can be installed, how to remove panels and such like. You also, with the Heritage Pro version, you get this box of accessories. So inside here is an adapter plate for SFX power supplies. So if you don't want to use a full ATX power supply, you prefer the extra space inside the case that an SFX unit gives you, you can run SFX power supplies in there. It also comes with the leather carrying strap. So you just need to remove these two connecting pieces here. These just screw out, one on each side of the case. Then just pop the handle in place over the mount and then screw those caps back on. And then you've got a handy carrying handle there if you need the case to be portable. Also with the Pro version, you get this adapter piece, so you can remove this from the handle and screw this in place. You don't have to have the strap in to have that on. You can use it with or without the strap, and then that becomes like a hook for hanging headphones or something like that on the side of the case. You also, with the Pro, get some more fans. So you get 3 of these Montech GF reverse blade fans. So there's 320mm fans, as I said earlier. You could install those in the floor as intakes or maybe in that side mount. You also get a PWM adapter cable or extension cable, and then you get a little plastic box with some zip ties and all the screws for installation. So for the test system build, I'm using a AMD Ryzen 7 7800X3D CPU. Motherboard is an MSI B650M Project Zero back connect motherboard. Graphics card is the Sapphire Radeon RX 7900 XTX Nitro Plus. Memory is 64GB of G.Skill Trident Z5 RGB DDR5 6400 mega transfers per second. Storage is a 1TB Corsair MP700 PCIe Gen 5 M.2 NVMe SSD. The CPU cooler is the Montech Hyperflow ARGB 360, so a 360mm AIO liquid cooler. Power supply is a Montech Titan Gold 1000W ATX3 PCIe 5 ready fully modular power supply. For case fans, I use the stock fans that come with the Heritage Pro, so the 3 reverse blade fans on the floor as intakes, the stock rear exhaust that was pre-installed. AIO is mounted in the roof of the case, so that's an exhaust, so pushing the hot air through and out of the top of the case. I did experiment in thermal testing with some 120mm intake fans mounted on the side mount, so 2 120s as intakes, but as you can see they are blocked off pretty much completely by the power supply. I made a few notes about the installation process. We'll look at those in a moment. First, let's take a look at the thermal performance. If you want to check out the full testing methodology, there's a written review page over at kitguru.net. All the testing methodology is on there. For the thermal load, it's a combined Cinebench R23 and 3D Mark Speedway stress test run simultaneously for 30 minutes. For a compact micro ATX case, the Montech Heritage Pro does okay when it comes to thermal performance. In the default configuration, CPU load temperature averages 67 degrees C over ambient, while the GPU sits comfortably at 37 degrees over ambient, which is normal for this CPU and GPU combination, even in a larger ATX size case. Removing panels and dust filters has only a small effect on thermals, with the best being with the side and top panel removed, effectively making the case an open frame. But even then, the CPU only drops by 3 degrees C, and the drop in GPU temperature is within margin of error at 1 degree C. Adding side intake fans doesn't affect either the CPU or GPU temperature, since the fans are partially blocked by the power supply anyway, so we wouldn't recommend adding side fans as the extra cost will provide minimal or no gains. However, bottom intake fans are useful, since removing them increased GPU temperature by 3 degrees C. The stock fans that come with the Montech Heritage Pro are not the quietest fans. To get the fans running at an acceptable noise level at idle, the fan speed had to be reduced to around 850 RPM. But under load, the AIO fans had to work quite hard to keep CPU temperature cool, so the noise output of the system under load was quite loud in certain configurations. Disabling bottom intake fans increases noise, since the AIO fans have to ramp up higher in this configuration to keep CPU temperature cool. Removing the glass side and top panels increases noise under load too, so they offer some noise dampening when fitted to the case. But the optimal configuration for noise is the default, with bottom intake fans, no side fans, and all case panels fitted, which is the preferred configuration for thermals too. So as I said, there's a couple of things I want to mention about the installation process. So the bottom fans, if you're running this MSI B650M Project Zero board, the bottom fans are extremely close to the heat sinks or the aluminium trims that go around the bottom of that motherboard. They're that close. They are, I think they are touching the motherboard, which potentially could cause some vibration and noise, which isn't ideal. The dust filter configuration is a bit strange. You've got a dust filter in the floor, which is good. Intake through the floor, so that needs a dust filter in there. But Montech's added a dust filter to the top panel, which I can't see any other configuration really where you'd run that as anything other than an exhaust. So that dust filter really doesn't need to be there. But then there's no dust filter on the side or the front of the case, which is a bit odd because if you do install fans on the side, I think you'd want those as intakes, so they'll be pulling in air and dust from the outside. And also the front could do with a filter, I think, too, because the power supply draws air in through its fan from the front and then out at the top, so potentially you'll have a lot of air and dust pulled into the power supply, and the power supply isn't the easiest one to clean out if it does get quite dusty. The stock fans are quite loud. To get those to an acceptable noise level at idle, I had to drop them right down to 850 RPM, and that was as low as they could go with this MSI motherboard. I don't know whether that is their PWM range and that is their lowest speed, but even at that speed, you can just hear them over the noise floor or the ambient noise in the room, so they're not the quietest fans. The white case, it has some odd aesthetic design choices. I don't really like the silver knobs that hold the strap on, and when you remove one of those knobs to put that headphone hook on, the headphone hook's white. It doesn't look great. The quality of it isn't brilliant. I think the knobs on the white one should have been white to match the case like they are black on the black case. But that might just be personal choice when it comes to aesthetics. To be fair, I'm not really sold on the aesthetics of the case with the leather and metal combination for a gaming PC anyway. It might look good in a home office or something like that, but I don't really see it as a gaming PC look. But again, that is just personal preference and that is subjective. I might not like it, somebody else might absolutely love how it looks. But it does have good cooling and hardware support, even in the default configuration, all the side panels on and dust filters in. The cooling is good. GPU temperature with those 3 fans mounted on the floor is as good as in any other bigger ATX case that might, you would think, have better airflow. The cable management is good, especially when you've got a back connect motherboard installed. There's enough room at the right hand side and there's plenty of places to tie cables down. If you install the power supply after the graphics card, there's plenty of room in the case. Other thing about the power supply as well, you can have it mounted right on the top mounting point and still fit a standard thickness radiator and fans in there, so that's good. That gives you plenty of space to manage cables below the power supply. Even though I'm not really sold on the aesthetics, I do like the fact that Montech has done something different. You see a lot of cases that look the same, either mid-tower style or dual chamber. They all look very similar nowadays with aquarium styles or mesh, and this does look a bit different. But I think the side fan mounts, that's a bit pointless because that's more or less blocked off by the power supply. Maybe that could have been utilized for something else, or maybe they could have shrunk the dimensions of the case down a little. I wouldn't consider it seriously as a portable case. It is quite big for this style micro ATX case. Something like the Lian Li Dan Case's A3M ATX is more compact than this, and there are far more compact cases in micro ATX form factor. And another thing, the plastic feet at the bottom, they don't have a great feel to them. You can see there's a lot of movement in those. They don't feel particularly high quality, which is a shame because Montech is usually pretty good on the quality. The quality of the rest of the case is pretty good, but it's not all bad because it has good support for hardware. Big graphics card, 360mm radiators fit in there, up to 920mm fans, and ATX power supplies can be used. The fans that come with the Pro version are a little loud, so I think I would recommend going for the non-Pro version. I don't think the headphone hook is that useful of an accessory. If you go for the non-Pro version, add your own fans that are going to run a bit quieter. I think that would be the better option. So that's the Montech Heritage Pro. Let me know what you think of the case in the comment section. If you've enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button on YouTube. If you enjoy what we do here at Kit Guru and you want to help support us, you could always head over to the store and pick up some merch, or you could even subscribe to our Patreon. We're also on TikTok, and if you want to catch up on all the in-depth technical reviews, head over to the website.